everyone. Welcome for today's webinar, which is webinar number 5. So today we have a very interesting case study or use case as our presentation topic. So we have AI at the edge in healthcare industry, which is real-time care while safeguarding your patient privacy. So which is a very important topic to discuss on medtech ecosystem. So my name is Miller Rajendran, and I will be co-hosting today's session with Ruben Kanavati Pillai, a veteran entrepreneur. We are excited to explore how AI at the edge is reshaping healthcare by enabling real-time care while ensuring patient data remains secure and private. So today we have a fantastic presenter with us, Mr. Eric Doherty, a global executive leader. Eric is always looking for ways to improve health and well-being of others. So working in industries and companies that value the same is passion. Eric has extensive healthcare executive leadership experience in the past years, leading $250 to $500 organizations to leading business unit with $30 billion to $100 billion organization. He held several global senior executive roles at leading companies in pharmaceutical, medical devices, pharmacy systems, and digital healthcare organizations. Eric holds an MBA in the international marketing and another MBA in the management from Washington University and St. Lucia Universities. So he obtained an executive leadership graduation certification from Harvard University as well, and a global operational leader graduation certification from St. Lucia's University. So it's my honor and pleasure to have Eric Doherty as our presenter today. So Ruben, over to you.
Hi everyone. Thanks for one of the wonderful session on the medtech area. So today's topic is incredibly relevant to the healthcare ecosystem and increasingly rely on real-time data processing while maintaining privacy and security. We are honored to have Eric joining us as our expert speaker. Eric has wealth of experience, as you described, in healthcare AI. Actually, he was mentioning that his father is a physician, and so he got into that very early, and I think he'll describe all of those. And we are looking forward to hearing his insights and practical benefits, application, and challenges of AI at the edge. Because if you look at it at the edge, there are going to be so much important because of various aspects of it we'll be discussing here. So we are going to be focusing on that today. And thanks, Eric. And Miller, over to you.
Thank you, Ruben. And Eric, I'm getting your permission to give a small brief for our audience on what is edge and what is edge computing. So basically, everyone familiar with cloud computing. We streaming our data, especially from devices, sensors, or it could be a personal information, records and everything for processing purposes to a cloud, right? So, but this era is all about edge. So much of millions of data points every single time streaming to cloud using your bandwidth, it's not possible. At the same time, it's not feasible. So that's where edge computing comes into play. AI in edge is, especially in the medical field, means processing data from your medical equipment itself or in a closer proximity without streaming everything to the cloud. It's a local processing capability, and building AI on top of it allow your data secure within the premises. It could be an hospital environment, pharmaceutical facility, or industry, which keep your data in-house and do all the processing what your cloud infrastructure can do, but in a local environment, only the annotation, de-identified data can be streamed to the cloud. So this is where the world moving towards. And with the capability of NVIDIA and Intel and all these hardware producers, they are working hard into creating an edge environment. This is going to be the future, and we believe that, and we have amazing applications built on top of it. So today's presentation is all about how medical ecosystem enrolls and enhance edge environment for protection of data and make sure the reduction of latency, especially in the medical processing with terabytes of data accessing. So that's where. So to kick off all the things, let's dive into the key benefits of AI that built on top of edge healthcare. So Eric, could you give us a start elaborating on how AI on the edge can facilitate real-time care while safeguarding patients' privacy, today's topic?
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And Miller, thank you very much for having me on this presentation, and Ruben as well. As mentioned, and again, thank you for the great introductions as well. I've got a pretty good wealth of information from a healthcare side of things when it comes to AI and more in particular, generative AI. As you all may or may not know, AI has been around for a long time, but it's been actually machine learning AI that's been used over the past probably close to 2 decades. Machine learning AI has been around where it's been used in everything from manufacturing to aviation to production, and also in healthcare, where they're taking data, setting up algorithms, and having that data run through the algorithms. The key to generative AI is really giving the ability to take that data that's been sort of run through ML, through machine learning AI, but enhancing it, finding better ways, finding better efficiency. So that's kind of what all of that kind of wraps around. And when it comes to the edge, the great example that I like to use is this. As many of you probably didn't know, around the 1904, which is the first kind of U.S. Olympic ceremonies that were held in St. Louis, Missouri, actually, which is where I came from before I moved to Atlanta. The 100-meter dash took about 14 seconds. Now, in 2024, as we just had the Olympics in Paris, we were nearly close to about 9.8, 9.6, and that difference is the edge. So think of that in terms of generative AI, and really the allowance of data that's coming in, data that's processed, and data that's processed in real time is of huge value when it comes to, in this case, healthcare. And I think if you look at a patient, you look at a cardiac patient, a neurology patient, or a patient, let's say, that's going into diabetic shock, all three of those really relate around the need and I think the efficiencies of edge computing, generative AI, and edge-related data. So that's a key component. The other side of it is the safety and security, and we'll get into that a little more in some other questions. But I think the other aspect of where Gen AI is good and could be better with regards to security is just really looking at the ways of enhancing data security, enhancing de-identified data for patients, and then also from a back-end standpoint, making sure the systems in a health system, in a record-keeping type of setting, are really adhering to the needs and goals of generative AI security protocols.
Yeah, I think you described it well. One of the use case, me being in California, going to the doctors, I see this when I speak to a doctor. He listens to me, not all the complaint I have, but then when he looked at it and, he goes through what he thought about all the problem and go through it and leaves. But with edge and being available this data at the hand and they can respond, it can be, accelerated, as well as give the doctors another assist at the edge with what are the complaints Ruben had, and giving more information into that way it avoids another medical visit as well as any medical problems also. If you look at it, Eric, if you talk about the edge, there is one of the biggest part of it is the patient's data privacy and security, because if you look around that area, you can see this data with HIPAA and various regulations. You need to make sure you have to protect, but at the other hand, you can provide better care. So how does this information with patient data privacy plays into with AI at the edge for healthcare?
Yeah, well, again, very, very relevant, very, very needed. Obviously, we've got HIPAA, we've got the patient identification systems in place, and those have been in place for a number of years. Where I think it's really of value is that now countries are actually putting into play rules and regulations regarding generative AI and AI in general. About a year ago, the White House put out an executive directive just really looking at some of the regulations and needs around AI. The EU just did that recently over the summer. So I think as we're moving forward, we're finding more and more that more of the developed countries have put things in place to really start to protect and protect that data side of things. I think a lot of the underserved, underdeveloped countries are kind of following the lead of the US and the EU. They're starting to develop those types of rules and regulations. I think the key element is just to make sure that if the data is being used, I think the key element is de-identification. That helps greatly. But also just, again, making sure that within a health network, within a payer system, within a company, be it pharmaceutical, medical device, or any type of corporation, that they have protocols, that they have set designations on how to use the data, where the data is used, and really where it's going. And that really even goes back to the patient side of things. We all, as individuals and as patients, we have to look at our own data and just to try to ensure that where it's going is going to the right place, to the right person, to the right entity. That is kind of our side of things, where we need to make sure that our data, health data, et cetera, is protected, but also not going to where it shouldn't go. And so a lot of that really kind of falls on the onus of us as well.
And if you look at it that further onto that, you address the private and security part of it. And then there is, because of the latency or because, the real-time discussion, and there is, what do you think about the bandwidth efficiency and, doing this, or how it can utilize to be personalized treatment for these patients?
Yeah, that's a great example of kind of the new tech of the day. And obviously everybody, I would say, on this meeting probably has a cell phone, probably has some type of a digital watch component, be it an Apple iWatch or something similar. I mean, right there, data is being collected. You use the iWatch. I have an iWatch, so I'll just kind of review on that. Obviously, from that standpoint, I can look at my pulse rate, I can look at my heart rate from an EKG, ECG standpoint. I can look at sleep apnea and all of that kind of wrapped around it, which is really cool. Well, the problem is, as you all can imagine, that's a heck of a lot of data. And so if you can run it on the edge and really get it to be actual data that you're pushing over to a healthcare provider or a health system, that's a huge, huge value. Otherwise, you've got to take basically snippets of that data over time. And so again, I think that's where the edge really comes into play. And think of a cardiac patient. Think of a patient who's had the chest pain and are looking at basically the potential of having a heart attack. If you have that real-time edge data coming in, that's a huge value to a practitioner. Same thing if it's a patient who has a neurological disorder or even a diabetic disorder. Those patients are at the threshold of potentially dying. And if you have information that's coming in that's relative to edge technology, Gen AI, edge technology, that could potentially save not only thousands, but potentially millions of patients.
No, I think you hit there, because it's something even to me personally, because I wear a diabetic continuous monitoring system, which is connected to my physician's computers, and they will observe this one. And even if I don't go there, they will call me and say, hey, you've been eating really bad, or you're not exercising, looks like, because your glucose level is spiking unnecessarily, and having a conversation. Otherwise, as you said, you had to take initiative, and as a patient, I had to go there, and the doctors only see that small window. Now you can look at it, the behavioral, and that can create a behavioral modification.
Agreed. Nowadays too, I was going to say the cardiac monitoring, a lot of the implants that they have now, the pacemakers, et cetera, that they're putting in for cardiac monitoring, they literally have real-time data coming into them. Now, some of them don't, unfortunately, have the edge. They need it. So I'm sure a lot of the companies are looking towards that and trying to make that happen. But if you have that information on a real-time basis and are able to track and follow that, and then obviously throw the Gen AI part of it into the mix, that's a huge, huge value, because not only do you see how that one individual patient's doing, but you can take the parameters of that one individual, move it into a group of individuals, and then move it into a whole sector of healthy and or non-healthy individuals, and figure out maybe there's some nuances that are going on, things that they're doing from exercising to food intake to whatever, that really draws a huge, huge, great picture for that type of cardiac industry. For my own thing, you mentioned on your side, Ruben, you mentioned my father earlier. he went through a number of cardiac issues. And this was, 30, 40 years ago, where he had literally 2 heart attacks over about a 5-year period of time. He had open heart surgery and then literally had heart transplant surgery. But through that time, and this is the 80s, 90s, there wasn't stuff like this available out there on the marketplace within the healthcare system. And to be able to have something that literally drives improved outcomes, drives healthier individuals, is of huge value to the health system, to lower costs, and obviously lower, hopefully, the time that a person would have in that health system or health network. They feel better at the end.
Certainly, that's exactly the point, Eric. So the immense amount of data which is available right now. So one is how we utilizing the data and use that for diagnosis and therapeutic application, but the amount of data which is available and accessing that data, processing that data, which is one of the beautiful use case of edge environment, in my personal opinion. So if you talk about the recent year, the Nobel Prize for Chemistry, this is the interesting part, was not won by chemists, it won by computer engineers. So that's the beauty of it. It's computational chemistry, basically. Mm-hmm. So the use case, the amount of data they use to predict protein synthesis and protein structures, which has never been invented, never been discovered in this world. And usually it takes like another 100, 200 years of evolution to understand there is an existence of that kind of protein. So computing that kind of data source, play a major role in this area.
Actually, it's interesting what you are saying. Actually, I firsthand found out that my daughter goes to University of Washington to do chemistry, and she was proudly sending me message about 2-3 weeks ago when they won the Nobel Prize, because this was from University of Washington department, and they were celebrating. But you're absolutely right; it is going into this and try to solve this medical problem. Keep going.
Yeah, one of the best thing what Google did mind do on working on these type of stuff, just not focusing on searches and advertisements alone. So that's the best part of having this kind of thing. But coming to that point, like these type of use cases never been imagined, these type of possibilities with computation and with the immense amount of data. So Eric, what do you think about possible use cases and some case studies with globally known case studies which efficiently use the edge environment and implementing AI, especially on the medical field?
Yeah, I mean, it's being used today currently in everything from pharmaceutical development, so basically drug development, to even clinical trials, where the ability to trace and track not only the elements of, let's say, the digital twins, and if you all don't remember or don't know, digital twins is basically when you have a stacking element of basically the same data set, and then you run basically multiple information through those data sets to give different outcomes. And the cool thing is you can basically run that information through Gen AI, through the edge environment, and really get real-time information back on how that drug is going through the process, and whether or not that drug is a go, meaning green go develop drug, or a red stop, it's not going to work drug. And so that's a really cool element on the clinical development for drug development side of things. On the clinical side, the ability to actually trace and track information that's coming in on patients as they're using medications in a clinical trial. So if you have any type of wearable data, any type of sensor data, be it oxygen, heart rate, movements, they can have diaries with food involvement. Right now you can also use imaging data in a lot of sets. So you could take basically random and or ongoing types of either x-rays or MRIs to see whether or not that tumor is decreasing or tumor is increasing within an oncology patient setting. So there's a lot of different variances that are happening on the clinical trial side as well. And then I would even say, just from a overall efficiency standpoint, a lot of AI on the Gen AI side with edge computing is being used in-house. And so when I say that, it's using it in the hospitals, using it in kind of the electronic health record systems, et cetera, to make things more efficient, to make things better. Oracle, as an example, with their Cerner EHR system, just announced that they're using AI in 2025 for a lot of their note-taking, a lot of the efficiencies within the Cerner EHR system. And so again, that's just something where it is happening all around us. And so I think everybody embrace it, because it's going to be here for a long time.
No, I think it's a very, very important part of it, because if you look at it from how we used to live, it's like a pre-COVID versus post-COVID era. That time, a lot of concern about data and privacy and having, edge where this kind of data can be exposed or hacked into and all that. I think the technology has evolved, and with the necessity of, people need to be not going to the, hospital when they are sick, or even the doctors able to see more patients remotely. And the telemedicine has, taken off, and, it's a great thing for the humanity from the point of view when there are not enough doctors in a rural area. They can do telemedicine. When people are sick, they don't go into the hospital and do, different things. So with the telemedicine and with, growth of that, how does the edge AI, I mean, you talked about some of the generative AI part of it, it can enhance, the doctor's ability to work with patients and improve the healthcare. Can you elaborate on how this has evolved over the last 5 years, you could say, and how that is going to go, improve the patient's care?
Yeah, and as everybody knows, through COVID, I think there was a huge explosion with the telehealth medicine side of things, just because obviously you couldn't go in to see a doctor. So it definitely was very relevant for the time. Where I think the telehealth part of it really comes into play on the Gen AI side of things is where they're able to also then coincide to the conversation that the patient would have with the physician is the use of the wearable data, the monitoring data, the lab information data that is coming into that system. So if you've got a patient who is, wearing a watch and wearing maybe a cardiac heart monitor or some type of a pulse ox system, you can go into the neurology side, and obviously if there's sensors that are, attached to the head, all of that kind of comes into play. So as the physician is obviously having the conversation with that patient on how they're feeling, what they've been doing, where are their aches and pains, basically, from the data that's coming in real time, hopefully from an edge environment, they'll be able to actually see whether or not that patient's doing well or not. I think as well, adding to that would be the medication side. So if the patient's on certain medications, through, again, I go back to the Apple Watch because of the apnea side of things. Well, let's say they're not sleeping well. And if they're wearing the watch overnight, there's information that actually can be relayed back to the physician in real time to really help that physician make a better determinant on what to do next. And so I think all of that kind of wrapped around itself really helps to provide better, obviously, outcomes, better patient information, I think a better relationship between that patient and the physician.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a very important part of it. One other thing is I am in Silicon Valley. I do angel investment. I, get to see a lot of opportunities coming through on this area. One of the area which I have seen a lot of thing is assisting doctors who are doing surgery and improving through robotic surgery and relevant to that part of it. Can you elaborate on what kind of surgery part of it things are happening on that area from how AI, generative AI, at edge AI, it can help from a robotic surgery for the healthcare system to give better experience to the patients and the doctors?
Yeah, and that's, I think, an amazing area of healthcare. If again, the folks that are listening to this, if you've ever seen a robotic surgery, that's awesome. Probably most of you haven't. And if you haven't, please look it up on YouTube. Stryker and some of the other major medical device companies really have these amazing robotic surgery type of devices where literally they're doing stuff within a surgery environment that are so delicate and so, I would say, nimble that it really, honestly, is probably better than the live physician. It's kind of amazing. Where I think Gen AI is really pushing the kind of edge, literally and figuratively, of surgery is now that they're using these robots with Gen AI they're finding better ways of doing things, better, I would say, workflows within that surgical environment. And so because of that, they're finding surgery sped up, so a little faster from a surgery time frame standpoint. Again, the better outcomes is also a big benefit, where they're literally the patient's doing better because of that surgical Gen AI being put into play. And then I think last but not least, because of the overall environment that the robotics would be used in that surgical setting, the costs are also minimized, and that's a huge value.
Yeah, I mean, this is interesting. I've been keep listening and reading more and more about it. Other day, I was talking to another company. It's called Medare. They do this two things. One of them is elder care at home or at the centers, and then pre and post surgery. So one of the area they have seen is people come not well prepared, because there are instructions to go pre-surgery, and then you had to do things, and then post-surgery you had to follow through. And some of these people don't come prepared, and this one monitors this information at home at the edge and looking at it. And if they didn't follow through specific methodologies, taking medicine, fasting and all that, it goes and contacts the patient and cancel the surgery until they get, because in all these medical, just like when you go into a plane, take off and get down, you have to wear the seatbelt, you have to be in a upright position. Same way, when you do a surgery, you want your body to be well in a state. It can, the surgery can go well, as well as the post surgery. So these are the information with the edge AI, so many of these can do very well.
I was going to add one thing to that. The organ donation area. So literally, the patients who would be receiving the organ, they are being monitored very similarly to that, where literally they're tracking and tracing to ensure that that patient is a true candidate up until the point of potential organ being ready for donation. And so they are literally starting to look at that across the board, from kidney donations to potentially heart transplant donations. And so the aspect of, again, data, the element of obviously, analyzing that data is hugely beneficial, but also, kind of interesting, where if you're not, eating right, if you're not exercising right, to be in that scope for a donor type of situation, they're going to probably tag you and say, you got to wait, it's going to go to somebody else.
Yeah, definitely. So we also have fantastic application built in the past. One of our previous speaker on our webinar series. So what we worked on for them is specifically on taking technology for the remote access environment. So it is like, especially on what Ruben touched upon on telemedicine side of it. Especially, it's a Parkinson and stroke, it's physiotherapy on mobile. All your data will be processed by using the mobile processing capability, because it's capable of sending a moon type of processing power you have in your mobile right now. So using that, your own machine, own processing capability, the edge environment, that allow us to work on de-identification of the person. So whatever we stream through the cloud, which don't keep any information about patients or anything, it's mapped on the other end from the doctor's point. So those type of equations are something like necessity is mother of all inventions. There's a necessity to work on local processing. So that's where edge computing goes. But still, there is so much of struggle and challenges. Unlike cloud, it's not popular yet. So Western part of the world access cloud very well, and they can invest on infrastructure, invest on edge environment to advance on creating advancements on the medical ecosystem. But considering the developing nations, where the population is all about, aging population to rural population, we are in the developing nations. So creating AI, especially talking about the AI in general, how medical AI can involve in this part of the world, like developing nations, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And I've been in this space for a number of years. And just for all of you, if you haven't kind of looked on my LinkedIn, I brought in Dr. Redfield. Robert Redfield was the former CDC director a few years ago, and just a very, very humble gentleman. But he did a lot of work with PEPFAR over in Africa with the AIDS for Africa type of scenario. So as you remember, probably most of you, back in the early 2000s, AIDS was, even in the 90s, was a huge issue over in Africa. So he did a lot of work in that aspect. And so that global side of things, I've worked with him on for a number of years. And so, the aspect of bringing new technologies, new information into those underserved areas is a huge, huge value to those countries. And so the ability to, even the minor types of data elements, be it a watch or a monitor or a sensor, where you can literally start observing individuals over in those underserved countries and start taking that data and helping kind of see what's happening with that individual patient. It's never been done with them over there. They're all pretty much, I would say, medically naive, where they aren't on any medications. They haven't really had much in the way of any type of true medical help. And so by using, some of the, I would say, the basic things that we use here in the United States and in other basically developed countries, and then taking that data in, the ability to really ramp up the benefits of population health is going to be happening. And AI and Gen AI on the edge standpoint is just going to make it much, much easier, and I think much more thorough than it could have been, 30, 40 years ago.
No, I think it is very interesting to see, because I got introduced to a group of people from US. They work collaboratively with UN and World Health Organization to go to various countries. Actually, it is not, you mentioned about the third world countries and all that. Even in US, there are rural areas which don't have enough doctors, enough access to the medical facilities, and some of those hospitals are even closing out because of the financial trouble. It is becoming so important to have this remote capable medical medicine, as well as for those patients to have this capability at the edge and able to collaborate with doctors all over the world. And the important part of it is there is a regulation associated with every state to state and country to country, but still all of those can be overcome when the patient needs help. It can be like my brother-in-law who lives in Australia. They have this every week, 1 day a week. They have Aborigines which lives in the rural area. They had to do medicine. They used to fly to go there and talk to them and work with them. But what has happened is over last 5 to 10 years, they have set up the edge healthcare and the centers for the patients to come in, and the doctors will be in Sydney or Melbourne or the capital cities, and they are able to access that one. So it is becoming quite important, delivery mechanism, and to get patients better care. But if you look at all of those, it's a great part of it in one side of it. Other side of it is a critical factor is a regulatory compliance. We touched on it earlier a little bit. So Eric, how do healthcare organizations ensure that edge AI system comply with strict regulations?
Yeah, again, with the, as I mentioned, the two kind of, governing documents that have been put forth both for the US and the EU, there are the stipulations on how to use the data. And obviously, if the companies don't use it correctly, there's pretty massive fines that can be interjected towards those organizations. I think they're pretty honestly liberal still. I think a lot of the kind of wording in both of those regulational type of documents are pretty broad. I think it's really more up to the institutions to start really taking a handle on the data and the way they're using the data. If you've noticed, recently there's a lot of kind of buzz out there with a chief AI officer. A lot of the major corporations, they've always had a chief financial, chief commercial, chief operating officer, but now they're adding in a chief, basically AI type of component as well. And so again, from a business standpoint, I think a lot of these major corporations are beginning to look at that aspect of, where AI can be regulated within an organization setting individually. And I think that'll be a really big compliment going forward with all of these governments across the world.
No, I think it's interesting to see that how people are incorporating. But just like everything, if you look at the investment these companies are making with chief AI officer, and then they need to have AI engineers to deploy those part of it. I think that's where SenzMate IoT team or like companies come into play, where they don't need to build their own team, they don't need to do all of their work themselves, but they can, as you said, the chief AI officer says these are the regulations you need to follow, these are the advantage we can achieve by improving this care as well as reducing the cost, and by having that conversation and then collaborating with companies with experience. Like we have 150 engineers who can do AI ML, but our last 5+ years we have worked on it with medical field and healthcare delivery system. So that combines together with our experience and the expertise is one of the key reason for us to try to do these kind of webinar to educate people. Yes, it is important to invest in this in new technology, but you don't have to go it alone. There are partners like SenzMate and others you can utilize to extract and implement these within regulations. But on the other side, it can be using the latest generative AI, large language models, and looking at this big data and able to utilize that information to provide better care, lower cost, and improvement.
Fully agree, and I apologize, folks. My camera all of a sudden does not work, and I've been trying to bring it on. So you guys all saw me ahead of time, but just again, apologize up front for that.
Yeah, so I think we are almost closing time towards the Q&A also, but we had an amazing session today and covering up amazing topics. Especially we talk about the edge possibility, why edge computing and implementing AI on top of it gives an opportunity to work offline and protecting data, keeping privacy in-house in the infrastructure. Case studies, global use cases, talking about the computational power, the struggles and regulations, compliances, and how that can be extended to the rural part of the world as well. So we touch upon a wide range of topic in the limited time period. So thank you so much, Eric, for the amazing session and for your knowledge sharing. So I'm opening up the session for the audience. So as Mr. Nimal is already raising his hand, so we can open up the window for your questions. So give me 1 second. Let me give me permission to you. Yes, Mr. Nimal, you are now part of the team, so you can speak through the mic, I think.
Can you?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you for the time. Sorry, I'm having a very bad head cold. I have 3 questions I want to be pretty brief about. Number 1 is that there's so much has been said about healthcare as a use case for AI from day one. When are we going to see actual movements in what AI is doing for healthcare to be able to make sure that this is actually getting somewhere? Or it's just investors telling each other everything is going well. I mean, when you listen to Ruben, he always talks about specific instances, but would we be able to see a large-scale improvement on what we are doing? In our case, we are spending 17% of our GDP on healthcare, but we are last in top 20 countries in all outcomes. As he said, there are hospitals not available in many parts of America. So when would we see, and which will be the first variable we will see the change by AI? We'll be able to monitor and say, okay, this is working. So first question. Second question is that, again, he talked about doctors and everything. Would we face a situation where some doctors might think that AI is going to take my job away? Is that possible? And the third thing is to Eric. Eric said something about literally tracking a drug development during the drug development the phase. If he can repeat that, I would appreciate that, because I probably did not focus on what he said, because that seems like an exceptionally important this thing, because drug development takes such a long time, and to be able to make a decision beforehand whether it's going somewhere would save companies billions of dollars. Again, thank you for the invite and thank you for your time. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Nimal. Always a pleasure to have you on the call. So Ruben, you want to take over on the first question, like when AI can take responsibility basically on the field.
So actually, I think where Nimal was going was with all these investments. If you look at the stock market, is not somewhat indication where Microsoft is investing so much on the OpenAI and so much money themselves, and when like they do tens of billions of dollars, the impact on their top line or bottom line is a couple of $1 billion, and to catch up for the investment and return on investment is a challenge. So if you look at that, how that medical field. So what is the difference between everything else and a medical field is medical field has a lot of data. If you look at it, the electronic medical records and all of these has been, I think from 2005 or something like that, they have established that. So if you look at it, there are so much data there already. Because all the other ones are basically you are trying to find needle in a haystack and going through a whole universe of web and trying to find there. But what is different here is you have the data. Now, how do you utilize that efficiently and safely and securely? That's what we are talking about. So in my personal opinion, and if you look at it, Oracle's investment lately on this, they're moving the headquarters to Nashville and trying to be in the medical area. The reason they see that is this is from their point of view, and I also agree, is kind of a low-hanging fruit where you have so much data, and this generative AI, LLMs, and all various ML are really targeted towards having those relevant data and then training on those experiences and all and providing better care. Yes, you are absolutely correct. As a you are in New York, Nimal, and with the stock market or the financial people look at it as being counters. It may not see as immediate value because we are looking at the bigger picture. To me, I think that this medical area is going to be very, very high, value potential. But again, it is not there yet. You are right, and this is where we want to play. Working with small organization, mid-sized organization, helping them use this technology from IoT at the edge, and they don't have to go overdo some of those things. One of the area which we talked about was some of these devices to collect information. SenzMate has come up with, rather than buying another $1 million equipment and going and installing a new one, you can just put some cameras to monitor the output of all these existing equipment which doesn't have the Wi-Fi connectivity, and based on the image processing of that information and at the edge, you can immediately provide. For example, remember when you are in a hospital and in a hospital bed, there is the blood pressure and various things has been monitored, and normally the nurse has to get the alert, but nurse has to run in and all that. But monitoring this one and proactively taking some action and informing the nurse as a co-pilot, saying, hey, we have done this because this person, sometimes it's a false alarm because thing came out and it didn't work. Sometimes it is a real issue. So there are areas we see as the low-hanging fruit, and then, as you said, it is going to take some time to adapt across the country. So Eric, do you want to follow up on the next part?
No, just a comment on that. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I do believe that it's the lowest hanging fruit, and the upside could be enormous in terms of outcome and availability of medical care to everyone in the world, literally, not just in this country, everyone in the world. I mean, people have the right to have a basic medical, and if AI can help doing that, we will go a long way. And also, we would save enormous amount of money. Enormous amount, trillions of dollars. But I'm just trying to find out when, as you are right, as investors, what kind of time frame we are looking at and what would be the first one. That was my question. But I never questioned the fact that what AI can do to healthcare. I mean, healthcare is one of the fields which has to have this kind of technology to improve globally. There's no question about that.
Yeah, I was just going to chime in a little bit as well, Namal. I think where we're already seeing huge benefits, specifically in the healthcare setting, is around the improvement of time. So you've got, obviously, as Ruben mentioned earlier, the Cerners and the Epics of the world on the US side, the EHR systems that a lot of the major health networks use. They're already putting in the AI, more than machine learning, but they're now going into generative AI learning within their systems. And so the speed, the rapidity of note-taking, the rapidity of information that's coming into that system, be it pulled from another EHR or another health system, or basically a lab or lab information system, that's speeding up the process and speeding up the care. I think also too on the HR side of things, and where I was looking at that is more on the time that the nurses are on the floor, the time that they're spending with patients, etc. All of that's being analyzed and evaluated, and by running Gen AI through that data, they're finding better ways of doing things on the floor. So I think that's part of it. I think that's kind of already improving the outcomes for the patients in general. The one thing I'm going to tap into right now is on the last question that you had around the clinical trial side, and basically that, and the drug development side of things. The big aspect now that's happening is the digital twins. And so basically you're taking two sets of data, and within that realm of those two sets of data, you're able to push and pull and compare and contrast between the two of them by changing the variables on each of those tracks. And so from a drug speed of development standpoint, heck yeah, that is happening. They're able to already show that the time to come to market with a drug will be probably reduced anywhere between 5 to 6 years, which is pretty beneficial if you look at the patent life for most of these pharma companies when they're trying to look at bringing a new drug to market. The other aspect is, and I think this is probably the most valuable, is that really from a side effect profile standpoint, I think when they look at those and obviously compare and contrast the digital twin environment, and obviously looking at things to not only be effective, but also have the fewest side effects, that's of huge value to the marketplace. And so when they can do that together in real time and use edge computing on a Gen AI standpoint, that's of huge value, hopefully a huge driver in time and in reduction in time to bring a drug to market, but obviously better outcomes for the patient, which is what I think from all of us on here look to try to do within the healthcare environment.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Eric, for that question, and thank you so much, Nimal, for that question. And I think you asked about whether the doctors will be taken over by AI. And personal opinion, it's take a lot of time if that's the case. Something like you have these movies in like transporter movie where you have a machine which cure everything. Take a lot of time because AI still is think more rational. So one thing which cannot be changed and it's not adapted is empathy, which is something which is hard to train and take a lot of time. And technology is always a tool. So just a tool to support and enhance and improve the efficiency. That's what our thought process at the moment. So take a lot of time to completely replace an individual. Maybe some characteristic or professions, radiology maybe, so something like that. But it takes a lot of time for general physician to talk man-to-man or human-to-human communication and treatments. It takes a long time.
I think that even the quality of the doctors is going to improve in the sense. Yeah, there are, honestly, there are bad doctors, but they get, hidden by not the information available. Here with the holistic approach of this much data and the full set of it. So for the bad doctors, they can be trained better, or they can be, eliminated from the practice because of, malpractice. But on the other side of it, this is, we keep talking about co-pilot and work co-pilot at a different level. This is the best use case in the sense being in there, listening to the patients and at the edge. And when they are ready to go, at least it alerts the doctor saying, hey, Ruben talked about this, something, tingling in his leg or something like that. You didn't address completely. Having that in the small information can completely change overall, how you medicate or how do you deal with that. So those kind of things are going to be well, understood. So again, there will be challenge. Some doctors would think they are, because they are not technology savvy. But living in California, when I now go to my dentist, when I go to a cardiologist, everybody is so tech savvy. They talk about, having all this information, immediately bring the image out and looking at all of those things. So it has been very, very interesting.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I brought it up at the beginning where I was using the analogy from the Olympics from 1904 to 2024. Think of Google. Again, Google 20 years ago, Google search and all of that was all new, and everybody was kind of like, well, what to do with that information? It only enhanced things. Now we have Google Maps, we have Waze here in the United States, which is a great app for travel. But the ability to tap into more information just makes us, I think, smarter, makes us more relevant, and makes us more, I think, tech savvy in the whole scheme of things. And so obviously with Gen AI now kind of being at the foreplay, it's the new Google is the way I look at it. It's a new way of doing things in a new information setting. And I think it's only, as Ruben, you mentioned, it's only going to enhance, I think, make people better and make decision-making better, make decision-making faster. And I think, again, from a patient standpoint, hopefully get their outcomes in a better way as well.
Can I just make one final comment on that?
Sure.
Is it possible for one university hospital, like Stanford or any of the top university hospitals, to fully embrace AI within the framework of safety, privacy, and everything, to show the rest of the country and the world what can be done by fully embracing AI? Is something like that going on there? So when you listen to you, and when we look at the real life, we are saying, oh my God, there's so many guys are not moving fast enough. So if anyone, a Mass General in Boston or any of the top hospitals in New York City or California, anywhere, Anderson down in Houston, if they can make a case, a use case, and say, this is what we can do if you really embrace AI within the framework of safety, privacy, and everything, and everyone else will jump in and say, oh my God, we have to do this.
Yeah, Mayo, I'm going to just throw Mayo here. Yeah. Mayo's doing that. So if you look on do a Mayo search in AI, they're knee deep in it. They've actually got a new group that they're building out over in the Phoenix area. I think it's called Discovery. But basically, it is going to be a huge AI involved type of infrastructure for Mayo, where basically they're going to have data analytics and all of that running through the system. But that is a huge thing that they're doing for the next 5 to 10 years. So they would be, I would say, the number one group around the U.S. at least that's really making it a forefront driver within their health system.
Yeah, to add to that, actually, we are trying to there is one of my friend who is in Mayo Clinic. He does the business development side of it, Nimal, and he is driving some of these efforts, and he talked to me about it. We are trying to get him, but he need to get some approval from the Mayo Clinic people to come on this webinar. But it is happening. You're absolutely right, Eric. I think I was going to say the same thing. Mayo Clinic is leading the way they are going in both technology side, one angle, and the other side looking at their capabilities of, they have Florida, they have Minnesota, they have Arizona, and then there are other places. So where they have so much, elders and so much people they can get into the system.
Actually,
so there's another one.
We have one final question from Tanisha. Sorry about waiting you for a long.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nimal.
Tanisha, you are open to talk.
Okay, my problem is one of the main problem when we are building a AI model is biasing. So when we are using an edge device, that also may be a problem for biasing. So what kind of techniques you are usually following to prevent that biasing when collecting the data and giving the when we use it for treating the people as well?
So you are talking about bias, right? Just to be clear.
Yeah.
About bias.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem, and we didn't really talk about it, the one bad thing about Gen AI is that when you have bad data going in, you're going to get bad data coming out. You're going to get bad results. And so you want to really truly ensure that data that you're putting into the modeling is good data. Is it clean data? Is it relevant data? A lot of the biases that are out there, it could be everything from, patient bias. It could be straight on, I would say, device bias, where maybe it's not reading correctly. There's got to be ways within your system when you drive those algorithms into the system that kind of pull that bad data out. And so basically setting upon the algorithm setting side of it would be a key end of things. And then again, on the back end, just making sure that, if it looks weird, it probably is weird. So making sure that, okay, if it's coming out kind of not looking like what you expect, there probably are some nuances that need to be changed within the algorithms, and just you're going to have to rerun it through that system a couple of different times before you get that good outcome.
To add to that, one of the other things, Tanisha, we are seeing is we continue to talk about LLM, and I got introduced through my daughter again as he's doing some of these area called SLM, small language model. What that is, it takes, you pick up the data which is already qualified, and for example, African American or Southeast Asian, because they have Southeast Asian have a tendency for heart attack and different issues and all that. So what you do is you take the large language model for generalizing and narrowing down, and then you apply the SLM or small language model on top of that to use case specific, personalize it from an age group, ethnic group, a female, male, and participant, and all that. That way, you increase the participation of this underrepresented bias thing. I mean, this is a huge thing. I mean, again, topic we can go with the Google, DeepMind.
Separate session on that.
Exactly. They had a lot of those things, but it's an excellent question, an amazing question, because this is important, because if you have bias built in, and if the patient comes from this minority group or underrepresented group and you prescribe wrong way, and it is yes, it is generally it's a small error, but for that person it's life or death. So you need to make sure that you have to understand. So there are research continue to happen in this way, but absolutely thank you for bringing up the bias into the medical field, and it is a general problem.
Exactly, that's all what I also wanted to put it in, but due to time, so we have to wrap it up. So thank you so much, Eric, for today's being so kind and having all this question answered. And thanks so much, everyone, to participate and actively participating on the Q&A session as well. So as usual, so this is our 5th session, and we have a continuous series going on. And we have an offer as usual. So if you are interested to explore on medical AI and implementing applications on top of it and solve global health problems with AI. So SenzMate are happily providing free consultation, at the same time providing a pro bono based minimum viable product development for you. So we are more than happy to support you on any possible way. After this session, by tomorrow morning, you will have this recording. Will be reach you out with all the perks and benefit be participate of this program. So thank you so much, everyone. Again, good night, good evening, all, and have a nice
good morning. Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon.
Yes,
Miller, Ruben, you did a great job hosting. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank you so
Eric.
much. Thank you, Ruben. Thank you, Eric.